Okay, so when last we met, we were talking about the European theater of operation, getting started in that regard. Now, because there are only 2 nations in Europe that are not actually at war with Europe, which are what? They're neutral. Which ones are they? Switzerland and Spain. Spain. Actually, yeah, you're right. Sweden is as well, but I was actually thinking, like, that's mainland Europe. Hitler can then spend all his time building up what comes to be known as Fortress Europe, making it as strong as possible, as impregnable as possible. The only way that you can strike at the German war machine is to do it by air, and that is extremely costly because it is going to involve tremendous loss of life. Why? Because of limitations to the Allied planes. Our bombers, the big ones, are able to get over Germany and drop their bombs, but their fighter escorts do not have enough fuel to get up and go with them the entire time. So they are forced to turn back before the Germans are actually going to start attacking them. So what happens is we lose the very beginning of 43, when we begin these assaults. We lose a tremendous number of planes and aviators due to the German Luftwaffe. And that is going to continue until we see the advent or the introduction of a new plane. But before we get there, we need to talk about the different roles that the United States and the Royal Air Force are going to share. The United States is going to bomb during the day. They're going to bomb during the day for accuracy. The Royal Air Force is going to bomb at night because it is safer. The reason they do this is that there is an increasing concern in Great Britain at this time, that after the tremendous loss of life that they experienced in World War I, they are now experiencing a tremendous loss of life in World War II, that if the war continues to go on and England continues to suffer the dramatic losses that they have so far, that the English race, the English society, could cease to exist, mainly due to there not being any men left to create the next generation. So, as you will see when we go through this, the British have a tendency to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more conservative in their assaults. And when they propose this, they want to attack at night, we are willing to do this because they are allies. And we understand the concerns that they have. Now, things are going to start changing in the middle of 43 with the introduction of the P-51 Mustang. P-51 Mustang is the first plane introduced by the United States that can go head-to-head with the German Messerschmitt and defeat it. It can outturn, it can outclimb, it can outshoot anything the Germans can put up. And because we can make them in big enough numbers, we are going to start slowly wheedling away at their best pilots. Now, why are we interested in their pilots and not their planes? You don't have pilots, you don't have planes, but what's the most important thing about a pilot that's been in combat?
Their experience.
Their experience, and this is going to harm Japan when we get there. We'll talk about it. Because you can replace a plane. You cannot replace combat experience in a pilot. And as a result, it is going to make our pilots better than the German pilots. And that is therefore is going to lend itself to be one of the major benefits to the Allies at the early part of this war. So thanks to the P-51 Mustang, these planes that are fighter planes that provide cover for our bombers are going to be able to take off in England with the bombers, fly over the English Channel, hit the railroad targets or whatever target that has been designated, and come back. Due to the use of drop tanks, which are basically external fuel tanks that can be jettisoned once they're empty, the range of these planes have increased tremendously. Anybody ever have a Mustang? the vehicle, the Ford. The reason it is named the Mustang is after the P-51 Mustang. The artist who originally designed it used it as his inspiration.
Have you ever held a P-51 Mustang pistol?
No.
They're huge. It's about 5 times the size of a regular.
When I get up here and you start lecturing, things start rolling through your mind. I heard somewhere, I want to say that what came with the P-51 Mustang is, I want to say it's a Rolls-Royce engine. And it was so powerful that it was more like the P-51 contained the engine, not propelled it. It just held it and it went where it went where it wanted to go, and you just used the rest of the plane to guide it. Okay. The result, by 1944, we have complete air superiority over Europe. Now, this, of course, lends itself to probably the worst recrimination that is placed on the United States war effort. This comes from people after the war, and that is, well, if we had air superiority, why didn't we go and bomb the death camps? And the reason for that is because of their location. Did we know what was going on? We had rumors. We had pretty good intelligence that said this was going on. However, there was nothing that we could do about it. Why? Because it was too far for our bombers to reach. No such thing as mid-air refueling at this time. It was beyond their operational range. Okay? All right. So, in November 1943, FDR, Churchill, and Chiang Kai-shek meet in Cairo, in Egypt. And here they discuss war plans in the Pacific. Chiang Kai-shek is the president of the Republic of China. Remember, he is the one and his forces, after the war is over, that are going to be driven off the mainland by Mao Zedong to the island of Taiwan, where they are today, where they are still there today. Here in Cairo, they meet and they discuss their war plans. Basically, what their war plans are twofold. They issue it in the Declaration of Cairo. The first is to drive Japanese forces completely out of China. They will completely drive Japanese forces out of China. And second, they agree that Korea will become an independent nation. Korea will become an independent nation. Now, Patrick, why are you smirking?
Let's go ahead.
Okay. I thought you were going to give me a witty response about what's going to happen right after the war.
I would, but it would detract. So.
Oh, it would detract. Well, I was kind of wanting it.
Go ahead.
All right. Armando. Completely drive the Japanese out of China. The second is to do what? Make Korea independent. Now, who's not there? Stalin is not there. All right? He is not there. He is not a signatory to the Declaration of Cairo. So when the war is over and he's kicking Japanese, you-know-what, out of Korea, and they say, hey, we're going to make it free and independent, he's going to say, I wasn't there. I didn't sign that. He said, but what can you do? Unless you want to go to declare war against Russia. Now, after the Cairo conference is over, FDR and Churchill get on the plane and they fly to Tehran. Where's Tehran? Present-day Iran. Present-day Iran. They fly there and they meet with Stalin for the first time. Here at the Tehran conference, FDR and Churchill agreed to open up a second front, and they let Stalin know what's going on. Hey, all right, this is what we're planning. This is when we're going to do it. Stalin says, it's about freaking time. My men have been dying. Does he care? No, because he's Stalin. But he says, my men are dying and you guys aren't doing anything. And they said, well, our job's a little bit tough. We have to cross an ocean. We have to cross a body of water. Whereas you guys just roll west. So what happens here is he agrees to do that. And at the same time, he also agrees, Stalin does, that once Germany is defeated, Russia will break that non-aggression treaty with Japan and will attack Japan at a later date. But Germany has to be defeated first. At this planning conference, the Allied forces are all put under the command of General Dwight D. Eisenhower. He is made supreme headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force commander, SHAEF commander. He is the highest ranking member of the Allied forces. He's going to be given a 5th star, something that was unheard of at the time. Something we no longer have today, and you will find out why we don't have 5-star generals when we get to Korea, the war there. But he's made a 5-star general because he is going to be commanding field marshals, which is the equivalent of a 5-star general. So they create a 5-star general to be a general of the army, okay? Big guy. Now the reason they choose Eisenhower is because Ike, which is his nickname, is the only one that is very well liked of all of their leaders. So they choose Ike, and because really who is supplying the most troops, the most supplies, and the most weaponry? The United States. So they choose him to be this commander of SHAEF. When they do, Eisenhower realizes the position he is in. So what he does is he makes sure every single one of his second-in-command officers is British. Why? Because who is the war? Who is fighting the war on the Allies? United States and Great Britain. Okay? So by making his second-in-commands in different theaters British, he is going to make them feel like they have a say. And he listens to them. Does an excellent job in this regard. So, when he's made SHAEF commander, he's also put in charge of what is known as Operation Overlord. That's why I had you watch the video of the beach scene of Saving Private Ryan. That is the best graphical representation of what our troops went through as relayed by World War II survivors of Normandy. The only thing they're saying that they said that is missing is the smell. When a man is torn asunder and his guts are pouring out, it's not a pleasant smell. Imagine. Operation Overlord is the operation to take forces in England and place them on a beachhead in Normandy. Once Rommel had been released from his hospital where he was recuperating, he was assigned to deal with Fortress Europe, where everyone believed that the Allies would invade. And he would make it as strong as possible. In fact, he would go so far as to make a lot of people think he was insane because of some of the things that he did. He ordered what are known as hedgehogs, that are kind of like 3 steel I-beams welded together and then placed in the water. You saw them on the video, in which a ship that would go over it at high tide would rip its bottom out and would sink. He ordered giant telephone poles to be put into the water, and on the top of them, old mines or old shells that were no longer in use. And these shells would be, in turn, underwater at high tide. So a ship that would hit these would explode. These were known as Rommel's asparagus, because they kind of look like an asparagus. Now, the Allies knew that Germany thought that when an invasion would come, it would come at the closest point between Great Britain and France, which happens to be at a place called Pas-de-Calais. Now, as a result, the Allies played a little shell game, tried to make the Germans think that that's exactly where they were going. So what they did is they took the general that Hitler feared most, Patton, took him out of Italy, sent him up to Pas-de-Calais, excuse me, not Pas-de-Calais, that's what they attacked, sent him to the spot exactly opposite, and started building up a base there. Now, this base was equipped with the latest high-tech equipment, like inflatable tanks, that when you saw them from a spy plane look exactly like a tank, but they were just basically giant balloons. So a spy plane would take a picture, and it would look like it was actually the tank that was actually there. And what they would do is throughout the day, they would move them to different locations and different points, so that it would appear that they were being moved, and they would have tanks, real tanks, drive through the area to provide tracks. And they had tents set up, and they had fires at night, so it looked exactly like a real camp. As a result, the Germans bought it hook, line, and sinker, and they put all their forces where they expected to be attacked at Calais. Now, when it came time for the actual invasion, there were going to be 5 assaults on the beaches of Normandy. It wasn't where they were expecting us to go. It was right here in Normandy, which was not the easiest to target. In fact, which one? Utah Beach lands a little too far down from where they were supposed to and has to scale cliffs that they were not about to do. The Americans had Utah and Omaha Beach. The British had Gold and Sword. And then the 5th one, Juno Beach, was given to the Canadian forces. Originally, D-Day was scheduled for June 5th, 1944. However, June 5th, 1944, a storm blew in, and they were unable to do anything because these ships that these had, these landing craft, are not the most seaworthy. They did not actually cross the channel in these ships. Basically, what happened is that they came across on troop ships. These landing craft were put in the water, the men boarded, and then they went to shore. The problem is, in rough seas, these ships would capsize, and the men on them would die. They would, as heavily weighted down as they would not survive. You cannot swim. I think you saw that in the video there. I remember there's this one scene where this man just jumps overboard, he can't touch, and he drowns. Mainly because he's too weighted down with supplies. He can't swim. Eisenhower meets with his meteorologist, and he says, how long is this going to last? Because I have to go by tomorrow. If I can't go by tomorrow, the tide will not be right for another month. And another month gives us time to prepare. It gives the Germans the time to prepare. We can't give them that. The meteorologist said, all weather reports look like it's going to blow over by tonight. Still, there's only a 50% chance that it is going to be successful. Eisenhower says, go. That night, 16,000 paratroopers land in the back of Normandy. They are dropped off. You have giant balsa wood planes that are towed up into the sky, come down and land, that carry jeeps, carry soldiers that are given the mission of breaking off all contact with the beach and any form of command. Cut telephone lines, cut telegraph lines, take all the bridges to give the Americans the time that they need.
Know what the 101st Airborne was?
101st Airborne does do that. If you have seen Band of Brothers, we're going to talk about 101st a lot today. If you've seen Band of Brothers, that is what they are charged with doing. Problem is, in many of these attempts, due to bad intelligence, when you look at something from the sky and you see these fields that are perfectly square, and there's these little things right here, that divide each one of these fields, it looks like that they're small. And what they are, they're hedgerows. And in France, what happens is, for centuries, they did not have fences. So what they did is they grew these giant hedges in which they marked the end of their fields. And from above, they don't look very high. So you would think that a plane that was coming to land, a glider, which is basically, if you've ever had like an old balsa wood plane, that's what they're made out of. They're just like little things that you had growing up. They went to things and they came down, they crashed, and you had to go buy another one. They were about a buck. That's what these were. They were giant balsa wood planes, very light. They towed them up into the air, and then when they got to the spot, they'd come down and they'd crash. And hopefully they landed correctly. However, these hedgerows were in many instances 10 feet high. So what occurs is these planes come down and they smash into them. And anything that was tied down at G supplies would shift to the front, and many of the men and the pilots were killed. But the job of these forces that were dropped off beforehand is to cut all communications and seize all bridges so no reinforcements can come. On June 6, 1944, at daybreak, $4,000 ships carrying 150,000 soldiers, of which 57,000 are Americans, are dropped off at their beaches. Through horrendous fighting, they make their way ashore and fight, in many instances, what was expected to be the worst German soldiers had been replaced when Rommel had come into command with some of Germany's best soldiers. It was supposed to be very easy for them to get ashore. In many instances, it was not. It was very, very bloody. If any of you guys ever played Call of Duty 2, one of the scenes in Call of Duty 2 involved the taking of the beaches at Normandy. This what? What's that? I don't think it's World War. I think it's the second one. But in this, especially the scene I'm talking about, but in this battle, there is a scene in which you and your troops have to climb this 50-foot cliff in which you are being attacked by German machine guns on both sides, and you do it with a rope. This mission is patterned after one of the bravest attempts in D-Day, and that is the mission at Point du Hoc. That is led by a man you all know. You may not know, well, you do not know him, but you know of him. His name is James Earl Rudder. He was a leader of Army Rangers. Once he was a colonel at this time. He's going to eventually become a general, and what do you know him for? Has more than a statue at A&M. His brother Tower. Brother Auditorium. He's going to be the president of A&M that allows Christina to wear that shirt. Why are you wearing that shirt? What did he do? What?
No, I don't.
What did he do? And if you need a hint, there's plenty of people wearing Aggie shirts, but I only called out the female. He's the one who allowed women to come into A&M. Why she's allowed to wear that shirt and not be wearing some nappy green and gold Baylor shirt. Where they allow women to go. So what happens is in this mission, and this is true, he and his men are tasked with climbing up Point du Hoc, which is one of the most vicious areas to ascend because it has German machine gun nests on both sides. They are successful, and when they get up there, their mission is to knock out a a battery of 105 millimeter howitzers that are capable of sinking a ship. They're not where they're supposed to be. They've been moved off of the coastline, and they have to pursue and get. Eventually, what happens is they get there and they find them, and they have to then destroy their gun locks. Destroy a gun lock, you can't fire it. You can't actually blow up a cannon that size. What you do is you make it unusable. And they put thermite grenades, and once again, if you play Call of Duty 2, you know this scene, because you put thermite grenades on them and burn off the gun locks, making them unusable. So, is D-Day a success? Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a success. By the end of the day, we have a toehold in Europe. One of the major benefits to the whole war here, the whole battle, is that Germany thinks this is a feint. Germany is still waiting with their Wehrmacht, their army, over here at Pas-de-Calais. They're saying, no, they're not really coming over there because Patton is up there. Patton is there, and he is going to come across, and then we're going to have a real battle on our hands. However, the real assault, Operation Overlord, occurs where? Or occurs at Normandy. By nightfall, the Allies had lost around 5,000 soldiers. Germany had lost 9,000. Rommel, who was in command of the whole thing, wasn't even there. It was his wife's anniversary, and he had gone back home to visit her. Then when he finds out, he's in trouble. He had bought her some nice shoes. Very nice. Now, once the assault is over, within 2 weeks, the toehold stretches anywhere from 5 to 15 miles deep and is 60 miles wide on the beach. What occurs is, as soon as we have our we have a presence in Europe, we begin building docks. Because once you begin building docks, you build them out into the water. You have ships that can just come up, unload, and then take the supplies ashore. You don't have to drop them off in the digging boats and then hope that they don't sink. As the United States and the Allies extend their presence on the mainland of Europe, a group in Germany who is not very happy with Hitler decides that he has to go. And because he controls so much of the government, there's only one way that they can get rid of him, and that is through assassination. You see the Tom Cruise movie Operation Valkyrie, it is very true to form of whatever happened. A group of conspiracists, of which Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg is a member, realize that Hitler has to go. And what they do is they plan to assassinate him using a bomb. The assassination attempt is scheduled for July 20th, 1944, in which Stauffenberg is supposed to be at the staff meeting with Hitler. In this meeting, the assassination attempt, known as Valkyrie, is going to occur. Von Stauffenberg has in his briefcase a bomb. His goal is to place the bomb right next to Hitler when Hitler is standing at a huge oak table, and place it right next to him, and when the bomb goes off, would blow his legs off, and he would, of course, bleed to death instantly. Nothing that anyone can be done. Now, von Stauffenberg had arranged for a phone call to be made when he was in the middle with Hitler, so that he would be pulled out, middle of the meeting with Hitler, so he would be pulled out and escape the explosion. So when the phone call comes in on the 20th of July, he places his briefcase right next to Hitler's legs and presses the detonation button, the timer, and then goes and he leaves and he runs. Well, from the time that he's called out to the time the bomb goes off, another man comes in, sits down where Stauffenberg was sitting, kicks his briefcase, realizes that's not comfortable, picks it up and moves it to the other side of the wooden legs. Now, if you've ever seen huge tables that actually have one leg on each side, that they're just monstrous. They're heavily they're designed to hold up a massive table. They're not like these where you have 4 legs. This has 2, and they run the width of the table. So he moves it from one side, and they're solid, to the other side. So what happens is instead of, when the bomb goes off, instead of blowing up Hitler's legs, what occurs is it propels the giant table up and over, and it lands on Hitler, but against the wall, so he actually survived. However, this pretty much sets him off mentally, and he's going to be a loony the rest of the rest of the time that he's alive. And I know you're going to say, well, wait a minute, isn't he a loony to begin with? Yes, but now it's even crazier. Now he's even crazier. For the rest of his life and the war effort, he is going to spend writing out orders to Army troops and Army divisions that had been completely obliterated years before. He is going to spend remaining resources on weapons that have no chance of being made, like death rays, like dreadnought tanks, battleships on wheels, basically. Okay. One of the greatest inventions that has been lost to us of the classic time is something known as Greek fire, which is basically napalm, which the Greeks had it. They used ship to ship, and basically they launched a catapult, and as soon as it hit another ship, it would catch on fire. The recipe for that has been long lost, and he just knew that it was on its way, that all his money that he had put into R&D, research and design, was about ready to come out with it. Just completely lost. Lasers, you name it, he is gone. Now, once Operation Valkyrie proves to be a disaster, Hitler orders all the conspirators rounded up. They are rounded up, they are captured, they are killed. One man who had been approached by a member of Operation Valkyrie to be the person who replaces Hitler was Rommel. When this man talked to Rommel, Rommel said, "No, I don't want anything to do with this. Go, leave me alone. I'm out of here." Unfortunately, they tracked down the man Rommel met with. They discovered that he had met with Rommel. So Rommel was considered guilty by association. 2 officers of the German secret police met with Rommel, brought him into their car and said, "Listen, we know what you did. We know you had a role in Operation Valkyrie." Rommel says, "I had nothing to do with it." He says, "Don't lie to us. We know you did." He says, "You have 2 options. One is a very public and embarrassing trial for you and your family, in which your entire family will be on trial and will pay the price for being a traitor." He says, or, he said, "Take this pill, cyanide." He takes the pill, pops it in his teeth, and is dead within a minute. As the Allies continue to advance through France, through Belgium, through Luxembourg, getting closer and closer to Germany, Hitler would tell his men and his followers, "Wait until the mists of winter. Wait until the mists of winter. Wait until the mists of winter." What did he mean? What he meant was he knew that the biggest thing that he could not combat in 1944 was the Allied air superiority. There is no way that the Luftwaffe, which was pretty much decimated by this time, could stand against the Allies. There was no way that they could do anything to stand against what the Allies wanted to do. As a result, something had to occur that would negate air superiority, the ability to fly and bomb. And what he said that was the mists of winter. When it gets cold, especially in Germany, and it rains, what happens? Snow. And if it doesn't snow, you have fog. And as a result,
Planes can't see anything.
planes can't see anything, and how do you know you're bombing your target and not your own men? So what happens is you don't fly. At this point, Hitler launches what is going to become the Battle of the Bulge. This is the last-ditch effort. Puts everything he has left in the Ardennes, where the Allies are the weakest. Why are they the weakest at the Ardennes? Dense forest, okay? We know this. Why? World War I? What else? World War II. That is where they go. So, in this battle, once again, the 101st is at the vanguard. They are on the line here. The 101st is right here. Okay? Allies, Germans. Got it? The Germans push, and within a couple of days, have extended past the original line. Their goal is to extend out past the Allies and then sweep in and cut off their supply line. What happens if you cut off their supply line? They're out. They worked at Dunkirk. Hitler's betting the farm that it works again. The 101st is at a little place called Bastogne. At Bastogne, the 101st is surrounded. They find themselves facing Germans on every side. A German aide under a flag of truce comes up to the 101st, waving a white flag with no, don't shoot me, ceasefire. Comes up to the front lines and is taken to see the general in command of the 101st, General Tony McAuliffe. McAuliffe doesn't speak any German, so he gets a guy who speaks German to translate for him. And he says, "What does this guy want?" His soldier that says, who speaks German, says, "He wants us to surrender." McAuliffe shakes his head and says, "No." And the commander, the soldier who speaks German, the GI that speaks German, says, "You want me to tell him that?" He says, "Yes, sir." He said, "Yes, I do." So he turns to him and he says, "General McCullough wants me to tell you nuts." And the German is bewildered. He goes, "Was is this? Was is nuts? What is this? You surrender." And he says, "What is nuts?" And the aide says, "You go back and tell your general that we are going to kill every goddamn one of you mother blanket Germans. That's what nuts means." And the German is wide-eyed and he leaves. And McCullough says, "What'd you tell him?" He said, "I told him what nuts meant." And said, "What did it mean?" He told him. He said, "Oh, that's good." So, if anybody ever tells you nuts, that's what you... Now, I don't want to hear any of you guys telling your mom nuts because that's rude. All right? So, none of you guys are allowed to do that. What, right?
The guy that...
I'm getting to it. You're getting ahead of me. Now, what made the Battle of the Bulge so successful? Well, a lot of it deals with Otto Skorzeny. His nice Prussian war scar. Never get a Prussian dueling scar. He lost a duel with another Prussian, and as a result, the winner gave him that nice gash on his face. Now, Otto Skorzeny, Hitler's ace among aces of commandos. Hitler says to him, "This is what I'm doing. I need you to disrupt it. I need you to disrupt it. I need you to figure out a way to make this possible for the Allies to respond." Skorzeny says, "I can do that." So what he does is he goes out and he gets Germans who can speak American. Now, what am I talking about when I say American? Okay, you can go out and find a German who speaks English. That's easy. That's easy. In 92, I had a, 91, 92, my senior year in high school, we had a German exchange student who came over and he spoke English. Okay? Why? Because they actually believe it's important to learn more than one language, not like us Americans who think, you know, all these people come over here and speak Spanish, better darn well learn American. Okay? You know? Don't they know we're the boss? All right? Over there, well, you can make the comment that the Germans speak English because, well, but anyway, so what happens now? So what happens now is he goes out and he finds people that speak American. Now, what's the difference?
No accent.
No accent, or maybe they have an accent, or maybe they know the colloquialisms, all right? You know, if somebody says, you know, hey, that's the Captain John, you know, I know none of you mean it, but because that's a saying from the 40s, all right? You know, let's say that's cool. Or like my daughter likes to say, well, so beast. What the heck is a beast? Beast. I'm like, what is that? I have no idea. When I first started teaching, I used the phrase, you know, they got jiggy with it. And one of my students said, Frankie, we don't say that anymore. Like you said it last year, he says, yeah, that was last year. So I guess, you know, beast will be old next year with something else. So what happens is he gets people that can speak American. And these Americans, they dress up in captured American fatigues. Okay, so they're spies dressing in enemy colors. Now what is that?
That's, I don't know the word for it.
War crime.
Yeah.
Okay, which is punishable by death. All right. So what they do is they take these captured clothes, they put them on, and then they get on jeeps that they have captured as well. And as the Allies are being pushed back, they drive through, and they get in front of the Allies. And when they get in front of the Allies, what they do is they start giving them wrong directions. And so when reinforcements start coming in towards the front, they're like, which way to go, which way to go? They say, go that way, go that way. And they send them the wrong way. So reinforcements take longer to get there. Now, it's not long into this when all of a sudden one of these groups of Germans is found out. A corporal notices something odd about these guys that are given directions. They were riding 2 to a jeep that held 4, and they were traveling in 2 jeeps. 2 jeeps, 2 people in each jeep, total 4 people. And he looked at it and said, that's odd. So he goes to his captain and says, Captain, there's something about those guys. So what do you mean there's something about those guys? He said, they're riding 2 per jeep. He said, odd, because Americans always ride 4 to a jeep. Why? Because it holds 4. Why would you take a jeep from the war effort to ride 2 in it when that jeep is needed for something else? He says, that's odd. I've never seen anybody ride 2 in a jeep. So they go up and they ask him, they start talking to him, and all of a sudden they realize, whoa, this guy isn't from America. This guy isn't from America. And what happened is they are captured and they are killed. In the end, Skorzeny escapes, but most of his commandos are killed. Now, because this is the last-ditch effort, it fails. He doesn't have the forces to withstand. Hitler does not have the forces to withstand the Allied assault. Now, as the Allied assault continues to press this bubble, this bulge is gone. And they slowly begin to get closer and closer and closer. Finally, they get to the Rhine River. Now, why is the Rhine important? The Rhine is what is the western border of Germany proper. Everything else that Germany had taken back in Western Europe has been freed. Now all that is left is to cross into Germany. Now, had we gone for a conditional surrender, that's probably where the war would have ended. But what are we going for? Unconditional surrender. Our goal is to have Hitler on the ground, our our throat on our foot on his throat. You know, I'm a big comic book geek. Okay, I love comic book history. Captain America is got a very famous cover in which, before the war starts out, he's hitting old Hitler in the jaw. Okay, that's what people saw. Hitler, Captain America, was the personification of the American desire to defeat Hitler. All right, you kind of saw that in the Captain America movie that came out this summer. All right, about this crazy thing that's coming out this summer where, you know, they unfreeze him. So, in order to get across the Rhine, if you've ever seen the Rhine, it's wide. You have to go across a bridge. You can't. There's nowhere else to cross it. You have to cross a bridge. Hitler knew this. He orders all his bridges destroyed to prevent this from occurring. All of them are destroyed except for one at Remagen, which is a German community. The Rhine is, the bridge over the Rhine at Remagen is still in one piece. The Allies arrive at the time that Skorzeny and his frogmen, his commandos, are setting the charges to blow it up. They can't set them all and in time before they are driven off, so they blow it up, hope that it would explode. Well, it does explode. However, what they did is they put it on one side of the river, and when it explodes, it falls in half. Okay? It's not the bad half that you can't traverse anymore. It's the good half that still is a complete span. The Allies are able to get across it, and they are able to seize the bridgehead and defeat any German forces that are trying to get close to them. As a result, within a week, another bridge is built across it that allows troops to get over safely. But because the bridge at Remagen is seized, it gives the Allies a foothold into Germany. Now, Patton, who has come from England, is now coming down and helping fighting with the Third Army. Actually helps during the Battle of the Bulge. Actually saves the 101st. They don't want to admit it, but unless he'd gotten there, something else would have had to have been done. Patton had told all his men and told reporters that as soon as he got to the Rhine, he was going to take a leak into it. It wasn't his exact word, but he said he was going to take a long migration into the river. So as soon as he gets to the Rhine on the bridge of Remagen, he gets up there, unzips, and lets go. And there's a famous picture of him taking a you-know-what in the Rhine River. You can look it up. I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not going to put it up. I've already used too many foul words today in class. I don't want to get in trouble for that. So, what happens now is, because of this, the Allies are in Germany. At the same time, Russia is speedily invading Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and as they are defeating the Nazi forces, and as they are defeating the Nazis, they are setting up their own governments. They are setting up their own little communist empires. This is the foundation for the Cold War. Churchill is very concerned about this. He says, this is dangerous. We need to do something about this. If Stalin takes Berlin and sets up a communist government there, this war is going to continue going on. And many Germans felt the same way. As we were capturing Germans on the Western Front, they were like, whew, we're so glad you freed us from these evil forces of the Nazis. Now let's join together and attack the Russians and drive them out of Germany. And we're like, no, I don't think so. No, you're the bad guys, not them. We don't like them, but they're not the bad guys. You are. And they weren't too happy with it. Now, Churchill wanted us to get Berlin before the Russians did. However, they were a lot closer. And in order to do this, Eisenhower would have to put more of an emphasis behind the Allied thrust, and it would give we might beat the Russians, but at a tremendous loss of life. And that was not something that he was willing to pay. So he says, we'll deal with post-war issues after the war is over. We're not going to deal with it now. This is a picture of the bridge at Remagen. This is a video that was taken by a GI at the crossing of the bridge. Now, in February of 45, the big three meet again. Stalin, Churchill, and FDR. This conference is different than any of the other conferences that they went to. The first conferences were held to discuss war aims. Now what it is designed to do is to address how post-war Europe will look like, what it will look like. It is obvious that the war is coming to an end. And since the war is coming to an end, they need to decide what is going to take its place. Now, I love this picture. This picture is great. The reason this picture is great is because if you get up here and look, who looks to be the tallest person?
Stalin.
Stalin looks to be the tallest person. But you know what? He was the shortest. He was about 5'2", 5'4", maybe at heel. Okay?
He always stand on a box.
No, he didn't stand on the box for pictures, but he always made it so that he was the tallest person there. Churchill's not that tall, but FDR, if he was fully, standing up, he was probably about 6'1", 6'2". But of course he was crippled, so we don't see this right here. But if you look at this picture, Stalin is sitting on the edge of the seat. His knees are further up than everybody else, and his back is not on the back, not on the back of the chair, and he is kind of leaning forward to make it appear that he is the taller of the three. Of course, he's wearing a hat as well, so he is trying to make himself look bigger. Yes.
So what did FDR without
what FDR
make himself not seen?
Well, what happened is the media had an agreement with FDR that you would never take a picture of him while he was in his wheelchair.
Yeah.
You never. And when he walked, he had arranged with his boys to have basically a series of his sons were trained to accompany him everywhere. And what he would do is he would hold his son's arms like this, like that, through their arms, and he had metal braces on his legs, and so he would throw his legs forward like that, and so his sons would support him. So his sons were huge. I mean, they were big guys, and FDR was, I'm not saying Schwarzenegger, what you doing. I'm saying he had a pretty big upper body strength. Right.
Same thing for pictures in the Oval Office. Did have the front of the presidential desk covered with the panels? And the desk looked like something like that.
It depends. It depends because I can't remember, but there's so many different desks. There's a famous one that JFK Jr. Is taking there was a hidden panel that closed that JFK Jr. is looking out while he's playing with JFK in the office, and but then there's other ones too. So I don't know the answer to that one. Now in this conference, Stalin agrees to attack Japan sometime soon. Says, yeah, we're getting close. We're almost there. But we're still going to defeat Germany. And at the same time, they agree to lay out the foundation for what is going to become the United Nations. This is basically the new League of Nations. League of Nations ceases to exist. It was pointless. And a new United Nations is created. It will go into effect after the war is over. But the United States will be the integral member of it. Where is the United Nations headquartered? New York. New York City. Why is it there? Because the United States is going to be involved in it. So therefore, Now, FDR comes back from Yalta, and when he comes back from Yalta, he is sitting for a portrait being painted when he exclaims, "Oh, I have a pain behind my eye," and he keels over. This is April 12, 1945. They rush to him, they take him to another room, they lay him out on the bed where he dies. He suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, brain bleed. Now, this is tragic news for many of our soldiers that FDR has reported. Axis Sally, who is an American who was sending out radio propaganda to any Allied soldier in the any Allied soldier in Europe. That was, she was American, spoke American, but was on Germany's side. Reported that that he had died. When this happens, it disheartens our soldiers because, think about it, he had been president since 1933. 12 years in office. He had just won his 4th term. He was the only president most of those men knew. Now, when he dies, his vice president, Harry S. Truman, is going to be made the new president. Truman had just been elected vice president for the first time in November, had been sworn into office in January. So a new vice president. He had only been in office for 3 months, had no clue what was going on anywhere. We'll talk more about that as we get further. Now, 13 days after FDR dies, the Allies and the Soviets meet at the Elbe River in Germany. When they do, they shake hands. What have they done? They have divided Germany. On April 28th, the president, shall we say that, the president of the Salo Republic, Benito Mussolini, a president with no nation, is dragged outside by communist forces and assassinated. On April 30th, Hitler, realizing that the jig is up, takes his wife, Eva Braun, who he had just married the day before, takes her into his last refuge, underground bunker, and shoots her in the head. He then takes a cyanide pill and dies. His last orders are to fight Germany to the death and to burn his body. His body would be burned in such a high flame that nothing that could be used to identify him was ever captured, which of course lends itself to all forms of conspiracy theories in itself. On May 8, 1945, Berlin falls. Germany surrenders unconditionally. This is Victory over Europe Day, VE Day. Now, as our soldiers were going into Germany, they began coming across these camps. In these camps, what was the day?
May 8th. Thank you.
May 8th. May 8th.
Victory over Europe.
Victory over Europe. Victory over Europe.
Still like the one.
What? Yeah, that's better.
Should have waited.
Yeah, right. 5/5/45. Maybe they would have surrendered 3 days earlier. Now, as our soldiers were marching into Europe, we started coming across Hitler's infamous death camps. We had no idea of the devastation and what they were doing. What these camps were designed to do was to deal with what Hitler considered the final solution. And this was how to deal with the undesirables. the Jews, the gypsies, the homosexuals, all these individuals who Hitler, for some reason, believed were a stain upon the American race, on the human race. And at first, what was done with the Holocaust is these men and women and children were taken and relocated to these camps, and then they were slaughtered. What they would do is they take them to a giant pit, have them line up, and then German guards would kill them, and they would fall into these pits and they would cover them up. The problem with this is that it forced German soldiers to do things that they did not want to do, and many of them could not live with themselves, and they committed suicide. And is also, by the people in charge of it, considered too slow a process. And so the next step was to create specially designed trucks, kind of like, imagine a U-Haul truck, big U-Haul truck with, in the back part camper, you have benches. They would have the Jews put on them, and they would then say you're going to another camp. They would go to another camp, but the problem is that they had arranged for the exhaust to go back into the cabin of the trailer portion of the truck, and they would die breathing the carbon monoxide. This was considered too slow as well. You got 7 million people you want to kill. No, please don't think that I'm saying that was. No. The next step is creation of specially created camps where they would be taken and they would be brought in and sent into areas where they would be given showers, basically to get all bugs and things off of them. They would strip them naked, send them into these camps instead of them having water come out of the shower heads. They would have poisonous gas. They would die. Then they would be taken to the next room, which there were giant ovens in which they would be cremated. And this was kept going nonstop. In the end, around 7 million people were killed, 6 million of which were Jews. Now, if you've seen Band of Brothers, and you can go online on YouTube and look it up, there's an excellent scene in which they come across these camps. I think it's Auschwitz is the one they come up to, and they discover what's going on, and they're horrified. And these men are starving to death, and this man's skin and bones. We joke that some of these people are skin, some of you guys are skin, some of you girls wish that you could be skin and bones, which is absurd. But what happens is they go and they give them their food. Now here's an apple, here's some rations, here, please eat. They're dying. And they're told by their command that they have to put them back into the camps, and that they can't give them food, because if you give them food, their bodies aren't used to it. They've been starving for so long, and that the shock of actually having sustenance killed them. And it is true, they had to do this. So, the Holocaust is over. Let us now turn our attention to the Pacific War. Just to remember, all the land that was taken by Japan, they termed it the East Asia Greater Co-Prosperity Sphere. All right? Should have come up with a cool acronym. Yeah. Maybe in in Japanese, it's once again, it's probably something like, it's probably that. The first battle that the United States engages in is the Battle of Coral Sea. This is May 4th, 1942. Now, this book that I'm reading right now, The Pacific Crucible, made me think of something that I hadn't actually ever considered. I was reading it 2 nights ago, and it has this comment that the author makes a comment that at the time the war starts, there was a battle amongst the Navy as to the future of the Navy. As a battleship, as the the main weapon, or is it the carrier? Because the Japanese catch our battleships at Pearl Harbor, the answer is the carrier. And the author makes the point that Japan really did us a favor by bombing our fleet, because instead of having a 17-knot fleet, we instead have a 25-knot fleet, because carriers go a lot quicker than do battleships. Why? All that armor slows them down. So the Battle of the Coral Sea is important. Why is it important? Because this is the first time a naval battle occurs in which neither of the ships engaging one another see one another. Okay? They don't see each other. Battleships, you have to see one another to send the shells your way. Carriers, no, because your planes have a greater range than any gun on a battleship. In addition, this is the first battle in the history of the world in which carriers engage one another. The first battle in which carriers engage one another. In this battle, the Japanese lose one carrier, one destroyer, 92 airplanes, and 966 men. The United States loses the USS Lexington, a carrier, a destroyer, 69 aircraft, and 656 sailors. The difference is that we can rebuild. They cannot. Japan, when they go to war in 1941, everything that they have is what they end the war with. How many guys have been to Corpus Christi? When you go to Corpus Christi and you go over the bridge, what do you see below you? Other than Whataburger Field. On the other side, you see a giant carrier. You see the Lexington. Not this Lexington. You see Scuttle. You see her replacement, which goes to sea 2 years later. Japan doesn't have that luxury. All right, we'll stop there for the day.
Have you ever